for your tremendous leadership on protecting consumers, especially our most vulnerable. And thank you to Amina Falula, Policy Counsel at Common Sense Media, and Rishi Bhawani, Partnerships and Policy Director at Accountable Tech. You and your organizations are doing such valuable work, exposing the harms that big tech poses, and educating the public and demanding action. We're here with a simple message to big tech. Enough is enough. Enough prioritizing the health of your business over the health of our children. We know that today it is not an overstatement to say that big tech, Facebook, Google, TikTok, Snap, and others pose a threat to our privacy, a threat to our health, and a threat to our democracy, and most importantly, a threat to the children of the United States. Just look at the news this week. Facebook clearly had a role to play in the January 6th attack on this building. The platform has become a breeding ground for violence and an echo chamber for hate. They profit by and from promoting toxic content for users. These platforms pose an especially dangerous and direct threat to the children of our country. Facebook's own internal research showed that 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. And 6% of American teens traced their desire to kill themselves back to Instagram. For kids and teens, this is a social crisis. For parents, this is a health crisis. For big tech, this is a moral crisis. For Congress, this is our time to act. If Facebook has taught us anything, it's that self-regulation doesn't work. We must pass laws, and we can start with privacy. This year, Congress must take up Senator Blumenthal and my bipartisan legislation to update the 1998 Children Online Privacy Protection Act and finally give children and teens a privacy bill of rights for the 21st century. Today, a 13-year-old girl on these social media apps has no privacy rights. She has no ability to say no. No, you can't gobble up data about me. No, you can't use that data to power algorithms that push toxic content to me. No, you can't profile me, manipulate me, and keep me glued to your apps. No. That's what the social media companies say to that girl. Our bipartisan Children and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act gives 13, 14, and 15-year-olds the right to say no. Our legislation will prohibit internet companies from collecting personal information from anyone 13 to 15 years old. We will lift it from age 12 up to any child in our country under the age of 16 without the user's consent. It will create an online eraser button by requiring companies to permit users to eliminate personal information from a child or a teen. Parents should have the ability, in coordination with their children, to erase the information that has been gathered about them. And it will ban targeted advertising to kids. We can get this done. This legislation has support on both sides of the aisle, including from our co-leads, Senator Bill Cassidy and Senator Cynthia Lummis. We can pass this bill, this Congress, and in the wake of all of these revelations about the impacts of Facebook and technology on our society, the least we can and should do is pass legislation to protect the children of America. But that's not all. Congress must take action to pass Senator Blumenthal and my Kids Internet Design and Safety Act, the KIDS Act, to take on big tech's damaging and coercive tactics that hook kids to their apps and to their platforms. We need to ban autoplay features that keep kids coming back for endless video time. We need to prohibit push notifications that lure children back into their devices and apps. We need to put an end to quantified popularity, including likes and follower counts that turn apps into an online cafeteria popularity contest. Yesterday, I pressed executives from TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube on whether they would support our legislation and take up these changes to their platforms. By and large, their responses were the same vague, non-committal talking points that big tech has been pushing for years. These companies can't say they're different from Facebook when their algorithms do the same thing, when their business model is based on the same thing, targeting kids and teens, hooking them early, and pushing toxic content to them. Whether your name is Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, or Snapchat, these platforms all seem to operate on the same computer code of misconduct, endangering kids and teens without regard to their health or their well-being. Big tech has lost our trust. It has forfeited the benefit of the doubt. Congress can no longer wait to act. Whether big tech likes it or not, we need to pass this legislation now to protect kids online. And now I would like to introduce just an incredible leader on all of these issues, Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut.
Thank you, Senator Markey, for your leadership now and over so many years. Senator Markey has been in this fight long before the technology reached this stage. He has been at the forefront of protecting children. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which we are seeking to update, was his creation. Make no mistake, he is a national champion of protecting children. We're under no illusions. Nobody should be under illusions. Big tech is going to fight us. They're going to fight us with the same bare-knuckled tactics, the millions of dollars, the army of lobbyists that they've done before. Despite all the platitudes and bromides, all the professions of good intentions, they will fight us. And that's the reason that they were so vague and non-committal yesterday. If their heart were really in the right place, they would say, we are for that legislation because we really do want to protect children by eliminating some of the design features and algorithms that drive toxic content at kids, amplifying emotions of hatred, anxiety, insecurity through online bullying, eating disorders, self-harm, suicide. This toxic content is a cesspool, a breeding ground for eating disorders and self-harm that parents are bringing to us every day with heartbreaking stories of their children dragged to those dark places and heightening insecurities that are literally destroying lives. You know, there's no mystery here. I hear folks say, well, can Congress really regulate these big tech platforms? It's so complicated. It's so much technology. Can you really understand it? A destroyed life of a 13 or 14-year-old is tragically easy to understand, and it has to stop. Enough is enough. And we have reached a tipping point. We are building a movement. The drumbeat of revelations, the deafening roar of outrage from the American public, we're hearing it. Our colleagues are as well. The reason why we have this bipartisan consensus that action is necessary now is, in fact, the revelations from a brave, steadfast whistleblower, from our free press that is publicizing them, from hearings that we're conducting that put on display the irresponsibility and betrayal of trust by big tech. And Senator Markey is absolutely right. It isn't just Facebook. Yesterday, the mantra was, well, we're not Facebook. We're different from Facebook. We're better than Facebook. That's a pretty low bar. It's in the gutter. If that's their measure of whether they are being responsible, they fail. And the simple, blunt fact is that the parents of America, if you are listening, you can no longer trust big tech with your kids. You can no longer trust these companies with your children, their apps or anything about them. That's why demanding accountability now is so absolutely necessary. Accountability to you, the parents, and the public, accountability to investors and shareholders because they have been misleading you, accountability to the Securities and Exchange Commission and other federal agencies for law breaking, and accountability to the United States Congress. We have the capacity and we have the obligation to act. Now, in the next day or so, very possibly Facebook will change its name because their reaction here is all about cosmetics, all about superficial changes designed to confuse and distract, just as they are continuing their lobbying against this kind of child protection. And it will continue, changing names, emblems, insignias, logos. It's all about the cosmetics for them because they want to continue that business model that makes them money. Amplify emotional and provocative, destructive content so that you get more eyeballs, so that you get more advertisers, so you get more money. We can understand that business model. And that's the reason why these two measures, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act update and the KIDS Act, are so vitally important to change the structure, the basic incentives, and design features. Now, yesterday marked some progress, and I'll just finish on this note. These companies came before us and they promised that they would reveal any of the research or studies that showed harmful effects on kids. Unlike Facebook, which first misled us by saying they didn't have any of this information and then tried to conceal it until the whistleblower revealed it, they said they would make it available to us. And they said they would expose their algorithms to independent experts and researchers. Now, that's some progress, but it should help us build that momentum and movement because it's more than just a moment of reckoning. It is a movement for child safety on the internet that we have been building that's going to help us produce this legislation and bring us across the finish line, I hope, within months. Literally within months. We can't wait years. We need to move forward. My subcommittee will hold additional hearings. We anticipate additional revealing information. But we can move forward even now with the bills that Senator Markey and I and Republican and Democratic members of the Senate are supporting now. And I think we have not just the opportunity, a historic opportunity that we need to seize, but also the obligation to move forward because too many lives have been lost already. More are at stake. They hang in the balance. We must act. The time for bromides and platitudes is over. We need to stand up to the massive lobbying effort that we can anticipate, and we can win it if we do. So we will be helped in this effort by the very staunch and steadfast advocates. Their eloquence and their outreach has greatly aided us, and I'm really proud to stand with them today. Thank you for being here. And I would just urge parents, continue to make yourselves heard. Your voices are having an effect. Make no mistake, you are making a difference. And just keep the uproar and the outrage going. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Just incredibly impressive work from Senator Blumenthal on this issue. Now I would like to ask Amina Fazlullah to please come up.
Thank you, Senator Markey and Blumenthal, for your continued leadership to protect kids and to hold tech companies accountable. Common sense has raised alarm bells for over a decade about the risks and harms technology poses to kids. Mobile devices that track your every step and record your every word, design that makes it impossible to put your phone down like endless scroll and autoplay. We are particularly concerned about privacy invasive design, the constant tracking and profiling of kids, resulting in detailed dossiers dating back before birth. And this unchecked access to kids enables companies to optimize the manipulation of children on their site. Our own research has shown how device reliance and use has grown over the years. More than half of 11-year-olds have their own smartphone, and more than 2/3 of 5 to 8-year-olds have their own mobile device, typically used to view videos without their parents. Children under 8 spend nearly 2.5 hours a day with screens, a number that nearly doubles for tweens, over 4 hours, and triples for teens, over 7 hours. And that's not counting schoolwork. Tech is now a part of kids every day. It's not an option. So keeping kids in mind cannot be an afterthought when developing tech and tech policy. Now is the time to act. It is now beyond clear that the world that Facebook and other social media companies cannot be trusted to regulate themselves. That time, and again, they prioritize profits over people and choose money over morality. These companies create products designed to mislead parents and get kids hooked when they are most vulnerable, invading young people's privacy, hoovering up location, biometrics, social graphs, likes, dislikes, and reactions to manipulate children's behavior just to drive higher advertiser dollars. They couple vast amounts of data about kids with unethical design to pressure vulnerable teens, to quantify popularity, push inappropriate products, and compel compulsive usage. We must create a healthy and safe environment. Let's begin by protecting children and teenagers' privacy. COPPA is a rare instance where U.S. privacy law has been a model elsewhere, but we must now catch up with our peers and update it to make sure it is protecting not just yesterday's kids, but today and tomorrow's kids as well. Congress should pass bipartisan privacy protections, updating COPPA to stop companies from profiling children and teens, and micro-targeting them with ads and content specifically designed to prey on their fears and insecurities. We need to put a check on tech companies' access to kids' data and no longer have a regime where consent is essentially a means to carte blanche. Congress should act to protect kids and teens where they are and stop companies from turning a blind eye to the young people on their site. We know, and we now know, that these companies know that young people are on their sites. Protection should apply when companies know or have reason to know that kids or teens are on their site. Congress should also ensure that regulators are capable, expert, and well-funded. And we should ensure that manipulative design practices, which can subvert user choice, siphon off kids' information, attention, and money, for example, nudging kids into giving up more information than they otherwise would, or making unwanted purchases, or staying glued to their devices, are a thing of the past. These practices, which are even more effective with all the personal information companies have collected, must be put to an end. We need Kids Act and healthy technology for kids, not a world of endless scrolling and endorsers. We can do better, and we must. As we heard yesterday, the social media companies all purport to support a federal privacy bill. Now is the time to give it to them. Thank you.
And next, we're going to hear from Rishi Bhawani, from the Partnerships and Policy Director at Accountable Tech.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you both, Senators Blumenthal and Markey, for your leadership on this issue. And I want to thank Frances Hogan for her courage, for stepping forward and putting this issue on the map and helping give this issue the attention it deserves. But I want to be clear that while Frances brought the receipts, she was not the first whistleblower, and she won't be the last. For a long time now, former Facebook executives have come forward with a similar message, which is that these societal harms that we're seeing from these platforms are inherent to the business model. I'll say that again, they're inherent to the business model. They're features, not bugs, and the harms should concern all of us. They've undermined democracies around the world, including our 2016 and 2020 election. They've caused genocides around the world, according to the UN, Facebook playing a determining role in the Rohingya genocide. They've facilitated the spread and proliferation of dangerous COVID mis and disinformation at the height of a pandemic, leading to offline consequence. And, as Frances revealed, they are knowingly hawking a dangerous and addictive product to kids, knowing that their product is driving up rates of anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, amplifying content with toxic diets, and even means and content suggesting self-harm. The last time that Congress passed the Children's Privacy Act, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which Senator Markey helped lead, was 1998. I was 7 years old. The Oregon Trail was the coolest game that we could play, and my parents wouldn't let me make an AIM account because I was too young. Things have changed quite a bit since then. On average, children under 8 years old spend 2.5 hours a day consuming digital media. Apps like Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat could not have even been conceived of at that time. Features like autoplay were not on the radar. YouTube launched 7 years after that law was passed. But the absence of these laws have real, meaningful offline consequences. And I want to talk about someone named Ian Russell, who ran an op-ed in the Washington Post just a couple days ago, whose 14-year-old daughter took her own life after, as he put it, was put into a, quote, rabbit hole of depressive content on Instagram. It's a 14-year-old girl who was presented with content to make her feel worse about herself and then steered toward self-harm. So the time for excuses, as Senators Blumenthal and Markey have said, is over. The consequences of these platforms are clear, and frankly, the consequences of congressional inaction are clear. And so I'll close with this for folks who are watching. If your member of Congress is not a co-sponsor of updating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, if your member of Congress is not a co-sponsor of the KIDS Act, make calls, write letters, get involved, because there are real offline consequences and Congress needs to act now.
Great, thank you. Excellent job. Excellent job. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I guess, would you say there is a growing appetite on both sides of the aisle to pass this legislation? Have you got any confirmation from leadership that they might prioritize this once we're done with this reconciliation and bipartisan infrastructure bill?
Yeah, I'll just speak briefly, which is that the hearings which Senator Blumenthal are having has clearly elicited a visceral reaction from Republicans on our committee. You can see it in their questions. You can see it in the responses that they make to the non-responsive answers which they are receiving. So I think that every day it's becoming clear that this has to be a bipartisan issue with a bipartisan solution. And at least on our side, the Democratic leadership is extremely interested in ensuring that we do protect the children of the country. Dick?
Yeah, I think Ed is absolutely right. Our leadership has been listening. They haven't been at the hearings, but they have been watching and hearing and heeding the call from all around the country, and it is an organic reaction from the country. It's not from the top down. It's parents stepping forward with real-life stories from their own families, going to our leaders in the Senate, just as they are their members of Congress, their local officials. And so I think it is a matter of scheduling. Obviously, we have to get through reconciliation. We're going to try to do voting rights. We've got a couple of priorities, but I would say we have the clear and present attention of our leadership, and they're going to try to help us as soon as possible. And as you know, the chair of the Commerce Committee, Maria Cantwell, has been at every one of our subcommittee hearings. She's asked very thoughtful and insightful questions. She's clearly engaged, and she's assured us personally of her interest in it. So I think she and Senator Wicker will be supportive, and that will help us with the leadership. I can't speak for the Republican side, but on the Democratic side, we're committed to action now.
Yeah, one final question. Yes, sir.
Senator Blumenthal acknowledged that Facebook has fought back. You know, the tech companies have extreme reach in this building with their lobbying power and their resources. What makes this moment different? Why do you think you might be able to get meaningful legislation across the finish line now when there has been bipartisan support in the past and that legislation still has not gotten across the finish line?
All issues go through three phases: political education, political activation, political implementation. What's happened through these hearings is there's been a national education as to what is happening to the children in our country. And there's an outrage that has activated parents all across our nation on these issues. And that's going to give us the means by which we are going to move to an implementation strategy to pass legislation. So historically, big tech always says, well, you don't want the federal government in and regulating. That's big brother. Well, what's happened now is big mother and big father have now entered the fight against big tech. And I like our odds. I'm going with mom and dad against Facebook and all of these other platforms. I like our odds. I think we're going to win. Would you like?
Yeah. I think, again, Ed hit it exactly right. You know, there is a limit to how much money and lobbyists can do, even in the United States Congress. And when lobbyists are up against families, moms and dads, who are viscerally concerned about their kids with eating disorders, with online bullying, with all of the stuff, the pollution, the cesspool, the breeding ground for harms, direct harms to their kids, I think our chances increase tremendously. But I will just say again, this isn't our first rodeo. We've been through this fight. We know what they can do. We've seen them. They are ruthless, relentless. We're prepared for a fight. And what's absolutely necessary is to mobilize the moms and dads and the caregivers to make sure their voices are heard. All too often, the only voices heard in these halls are, in fact, the billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg, and the gigantic behemoth corporations, Facebook or TikTok. And there are lots of reasons why this time will be different, but not without a fight. And you can see they are not only relentless and ruthless, they are ingenious. The idea that, oh, it's your problem, regulation, you have to do it, not on us. That's yet another tactic on their part. And they'll get down in the trenches, in the weeds, in the gutter to fight us on all of the specific provisions that we offer, because what's at stake is money, and it's big money, literally billions and billions of dollars.
Okay, thank you. We have to run, sorry. The roll call is on, up on the floor.
Thank you. You guys are great. Thank you so much.